Welcome back to our live event. Oh, you know what? When this live event ends, at the end, we've got more stuff for you too. So just when this live event ends, don't worry, we'll remind you that there's even more stuff you've never seen before. But for our last section in this live event, I'd like to welcome you to Forensics, Investigations, and Lockouts. I got to tell you, Ashley, this sounds really cool. So you're not going to let me down, right?
I hope not.
Okay.
Unless you've seen all this before.
Probably not. So
Probably not. All
that's
right.
why you're PFE. So here's what we're going to do. If you take a look at my slide, we're going to take a look at, I don't know, metadata. I don't know, event logs. I know event logs. And then we'll look at lockouts and permissions. So, Ashley, what is this metadata you speak of?
Well, really what we're trying to answer in this segment is, who did this? Right?
No, that's right. Yes,
right.
That's right.
Who did this and when? When did this change? Those are the kinds of questions that people get hung out to dry.
So somebody deletes an OU, somebody deletes a user account, things are magically getting changed. I, as the administrator, how did this happen? When did this happen? That's what you're going to help me understand.
Right. And yes, it is good. The secret of this lies in what we call the metadata. The replication attribute metadata is this special property on every object in Active Directory that has all kinds of juicy details. They're really hard to get to typically. In the past, you had to use repadmin to do it. And it was difficult binary data encoded in this attribute. Now we've got a handy commandlet that makes it really easy to get to, and so that's what we're going to start with today.
Well, then let's get on this horse and ride, partner.
Yes, sir. Actually, I tell you what,
that was his comment just before we started this section, so I had to use it.
Yeah. So I want to show you one other quick tip. If we flip to my screen here, I threw this together a while back, and I'm sure there are probably more sophisticated ways to do this, but sometimes the big accounts have been renamed. They should be, right?
Yeah.
And again, a new environment, I just inherited it. I don't know where is the admin account.
Right.
That kind of thing.
It got changed, it got renamed. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we can do this SID, security identifier object, and I know that's scary .NET looking stuff. Don't worry about it. For the IT pros out there, just copy the code and it works. So basically we're creating a SID based on the domain SID of the root forest, the root domain in the forest, and we're appending 519 to it, and that's the RID of the enterprise admin account.
Now, and you mentioned a couple of parts there, so hopefully you know quite a bit about Active Directory, because RID, the RID master, stuff like that, you're using this terminology of how the SIDs get put together and all that kind of stuff.
So we're reconstructing a SID for the enterprise admin group here. Yeah.
Awesome.
Same for domain admins, the administrator's local group in the domain, which is a fixed SID anyway, and then the Active Directory user here, the AD domain admin. That should be user DA, but anyway, the 500 account. So basically I can run these then and find out who, we'll just run all these. And then that'll show me who those accounts are. So I have to target the forest root then, and I can find the enterprise. Let's get to it here. Scroll back. Yeah, enterprise admins right there. So awesome. I can find those just in a quick glimpse. All right, so let's talk about metadata. I just want to throw that in as little bonus content.
Oh, and I just wanted to throw in your VMs, your clock timing is really messed up on your VMs. So everybody's watching this live. No, it's not like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So yeah. I just want to throw that in. Also, don't forget, make sure you take the poll and all that kind of stuff. But we'll talk about that when we get to the end. So you were saying.
Okay, so we have repadmin here that we've used for years. And you know what? We didn't show the PDF, did we?
Yeah, we showed it.
Did we show? Okay, yeah, we showed that. Okay,
that wonderful PDF that you made for everybody that we can pin on the wall in our office.
Right. Okay, yes, we did show them. Okay, so in there you'll see repadmin show object metadata is the switch show obj meta, and so this says the problem. This runs, But the problem is it's just a really streamed bunch of text that doesn't mean anything to PowerShell, right?
Right.
And it's hard to parse. It wraps. It's awkward. So what I want to do instead is say, get the administrator account, look at the replication attribute metadata.
Oh, I like this. Yeah.
Not quite the longest commandlet name in the world of
Not
Active
quite. I
Directory.
think there's a SharePoint commandlet that is like, I mean, really, really long.
There's like a 52 character one that has to do with like replication password policy stuff.
Oh, there you go.
So here we go. We're going to take a look at this administrator account now. And notice now it comes back the same data, but all that wrapping has been kind of contained. And again, it's a lot of data to look at, but here's the information. And I'm going to explain what this, tell me what we're looking at. Okay, just 1 second. We're going to pipe this to out grid view, and now it's going to make some sense. So let's remember, out grid view is your friend. So here we go. I've got last originating change directory server entity. That sounds fancy. It just says CVDC1. That's a domain controller that changed something. What did it change? Well, let's go over here and look. Here's the attribute name. Now check this out.
Okay.
Attribute names and version stamps. This is really fancy here. What this tells us is when this object, the administrator account, the last logon timestamp has been updated 58 times since the one that was created, 58 more. That attribute has been changed 59 times.
Ooh, I like that a lot.
Lockout time.
Yeah.
Yep. Password history. There have been 11 passwords on this account.
Oh, this is really good information. I'm so glad you brought this up in Outgrid View because it's a lot easier to see.
Exactly. So much easier to read. Let's go on down here to like given name, things like that. We can see security descriptor. And because this is in grid view, I can sort this and see what are the most changed attributes. Now, here's what's really cool. Password last set was done on 8/4/2014 with this USN, and it was initiated against this DC, CVDC-R2.
So you can tell what domain controller received the last password change request, when it was done, making sure, validating that you are within your policy guidelines of password changes and things like that.
Yep.
Oh, this is awesome.
So let's play with this a little bit. Now remember USN, do you remember what USN stands for?
I'm sure it's not United Space Services or whatever.
No.
I don't know.
It's update sequence number.
Update sequence number.
So you're
like version?
So you're a domain controller and I'm a domain controller. And we talk all the time and we exchange what's new and what's the latest, right?
I'm replicating.
Yes, we're replicating, right? So when we replicate, I got to say, hey, first off, I make an announcement. Say, hey, I've got changes. Come get them. And you come to get those changes, but you don't know what's exactly changed yet. So I put an update sequence number on there, and then you keep a track of that. And you say, okay, last time we talked, I was up through number 1,000. Give me everything bigger than 1,000.
Last time we talked, we were up to 1,000. How about giving me everything bigger than 1,000?
Here's 1,001, 1,002, 1,003, right?
Awesome.
All right, so now that's how we keep track of what's changed, and we trade those things around.
Domain controller replication. It's really cool.
Yeah.
No, it's not. No.
So this USN number then tells me that was the USN version stamp from that DC at that time on that attribute. Really cool stuff that gets us down into the nitty-gritty of research. Now let's try this. Let's say get the administrator account.
Okay.
And actually we just did that. So let's do this. Let's do two sets on the given name attribute. I've done this demo a lot of times. That's why it's kind of ramped up. So I just did a set. I did another set. And now when I go look at it again, the given name attribute over here, and where's my number? 20. It's been changed 20 times. And I can see that change was initiated. Let's see, get back over here. Last originating change directory server entry was CVDC-R2.
Nice.
And not only that, I've got the invocation ID so I can tell which version of the database. Typically, the invocation ID is a unique database signature on every DC. And so when I do an authoritative restore, let's say, I roll that.
Right.
So it tells everybody to, or no, when I do a non-authoritative restore, it says, hey, I've got a new database signature. Please replicate those things back to me that you just received.
That you had received. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's going to come into play here later later in those other modules that we're going to record. We're going to talk about that even in more detail. So let's see, all attributes that have updated since creation. So now that I've got this object-oriented data, I can just say where version's greater than 1.
Right, and now you can start using PowerShell to start pulling out just the data that you wanted.
Right, so here's just the data that's been updated on that account and what DC originated the change, what date and time.
See, that's great. So now we can pull up all this information about this object. Most people don't even know that this metadata existed, even when we would do it with rep admin.
Right.
And now we can pull up this information. This is great. I love it.
So now think about it. What's the next logical step? I know the DC where it changed.
Now I want to know who changed it.
Right. So I know where and when.
I know where and when.
So now we want to know who. Who, right? Who. So we got to get that out of the event logs.
Oh, okay. So let me. I think I got a slide for this real quick.
But before we do, you know what? I've got one other trick to show you.
Okay.
Before we hit event logs.
Okay.
The other problem, I think it was Mike Robbins at PowerShell Saturday number 3, maybe in Charlotte, came up to me after my session and he said,
Mike F. Robbins has a great blog, by the way.
Yeah, check out Mike Robbins. He's an MVP now in PowerShell community. So he said, hey, Ashley, I've got this user that's been around the company for 20 years and he's been in every department and now he's got all these departmental group memberships. So let's pick the usual suspects: accounting, marketing, production, finance, all that. Right. So now he's been in all these different groups, and now all those groups have been added to his user account, and now we don't know which ones he's really supposed to be in. What are the newest groups he's been added to? So wouldn't it be cool if there's a way we could look at the history of a user's group memberships and when they were added to all those groups?
Oh, wait a minute. This on so many levels, this is cool. This could help with troubleshooting, permission issues. I mean, this is a big deal.
So let's take a look here. We've got our usual victim here, Ann Lan. And so then we say get AD user, and we're going to get this user object. So now we've got the distinguished name, we're going to do a get AD user, no big deal. We're going to look at all the groups he's a member of. And then for each one of those groups that he's a member of, we're going to go grab the replication attribute metadata.
So we're going to iterate through each one of those.
And here's the trick. You have to do this parameter, show all linked values, because group memberships since 2003 are linked values now. So we're going to show all those linked values, and we're going to show where the member is equal to that user's distinguished name. And then we're going to pick out the first originating time, blah, blah, blah. Here we go. Let's run it. What comes up then is a sorted list by date order. On April 12th, 2011, he was added to the legal group. On November 23rd, 2011, he was added to this universal test group. In February 2013, he went to HR department. Oh, there, look, he's an account operators now. And then in manufacturing in October.
This is fantastic. I can see who's been making I can tell when changes are being made to the group membership. Man, this helps a lot in troubleshooting. Also in just the historical record of what they've been a member of throughout this. Oh, this is great.
Yeah, so now I can go see, okay, he doesn't really need to be in the legal department anymore.
Right.
He's long gone. So that was the oldest group. We can
get rid of
bump him out of there and that kind of thing. So we can do some other really cool things around group memberships. You think that was cool? Here we go. So I'm going to take a look. Let's do the legal group now and look at the group metadata here on this group. So here's the usual stuff, the distinguished name, or not the distinguished name, the security descriptor, the name, description, all this stuff. And these over here far to the right, we've got this count of version, right? How many times it's been changed, the date it was changed, and all that stuff. But over here, when we say show all those linked values in a group, now I can see every member of that group, the date they were added to the group, and the DC where that change originated.
Wow. that's a big deal. So I know exactly when these users got added to the group.
So, for example, here is
I can see that. Yeah.
this AASELIG user ID. It was added to the group April 12th, 2011. And then the directory server, let's see, that's not published on that one. Here's the invocation ID, though. So that domain controller's probably been decommissioned since then. And notice the last originating delete time is 1600. So we know that it's never been deleted, right?
Never been deleted, yeah.
But look at this. Hey, there's a user they were added to the group and then they were deleted
from the group. I love this historical.
So here's the date they were removed from the group.
And from a forensic kind of discovery, all of a sudden the user's getting way too many permissions, this is a way to find out when did they get added to this group that's giving them more than what they should be having.
Right.
Allowing you to start to investigate on when they got added, who could have added them, that kind of stuff.
And that's why we call this forensics. So,
is that why we call it forensics?
Yes, it is. CSI on the directory here. So we've nixed some users already, so they're gone. And then we looked at those changes already. Now you can do this with repadmin, show obj meta. Again, PowerShell doesn't like that syntax, so you have to run it outside the command line. But again, you're working with flat text there. Now we've got object-oriented data. It's really easy.
Now it's all object-based. It's properties. We can manipulate it. We can just pull out the stuff we want. All the beautiful things that PowerShell does, because now that we've got the data in there, rather than from the old repadmin. I know it's hard to read with repadmin and deal with, so that's fantastic. So back to now we've kind of discovered what's going on, when it happened, where it happened. What's this thing about who?
Who, that would be in the event log. Right. So we have to talk about event logs. Now, I'm going to do this in 2 steps. I want to just first off talk about how to read event logs with PowerShell.
Okay.
Because this is one of the most popular blog posts that I've got out there, and that tells me that people are interested in this particular piece of information. So there's the get event log commandlet that only looks at the classic Windows event logs, right?
Right.
And so we're not really supposed to use that one anymore. But then IT Pro, right? I go and I say, what am I supposed to use? Get win event. But then all of a sudden, my head starts to spin when I see XPath and XML.
There's a lot of
no,
tons and tons of stuff. Yep.
Yeah, that's ugly, right? Because and I always say it's XML versus IT Pro. Yeah, I don't think that way. I'm not a developer. So how do I make sense of this? Well, I want to show you a trick then. There are a number of parameters for getWinEvent, and one of them is an XML filter. And you're looking at this thinking, oh my, how am I going to come up with this, right? So let's go out and let's look at the event log. Notice Windows Server 2012 R2 bottom left corner here, right click. Got my shortcut menu there on the start button, event viewer. So now I'm going to go in and take a look at there's the traditional logs. We're looking at these other logs here as well. So there's our directory services. But there's the security log, and that's really what we're after because we're wanting auditing events in there. So what I'm going to do is filter the log over here on the right side. Now, most of us have done this at some point, right? So we're looking for an event. And so let's say I'm looking for event 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. And I want to find just the errors that have occurred in the last 24 hours. All right. Now, that's where most of us click OK.
Right.
But if I hit the XML tab at the top, there it is.
That's where that comes from. Okay, this is cool. I like this. Yeah.
So now what I do is I click the edit manually. Are you sure? Yes. So now I can copy and paste that. All right, so now I go back to my script, and I put the text here in a here string.
Yep.
Remember the at, quote at, right?
And as a side note, if you're working with PowerShell and you haven't seen a here string is that at symbol and double quotes. The way that you type things, it's kind of WYSIWYG in a funny kind of way. But one kind of caution is the close of the here string must be fully left justified, or it breaks.
Yeah. And then notice also we're strongly typing this as XML. So it's not treating this as just text.
Right.
The engine is actually creating this as an XML data type, which is meaningful then to the operating system. So what I'm going to do then is, using that trick, I'm going to pass that as an XML filter. And I can't take credit for that. I think I saw that on the Hey Scripting Guy blog somewhere. So it's, I've got in my blog post out there, if you look at the XML, making sense of XML and when event, there's it goes into a lot of links and where you can find more information. So what I want to do now is I want to say, go out to my DCs. And you know what? I don't even have a list of DCs here. I could create one real quick. $DCs equals get dash AD. I'm looking for domain controllers.
I would guess domain controller.
Domain controller.
I've been wrong in the past, so.
Filter star. And one little trick that I use all the time is expand property.
Oh, yeah.
DNS host name is the attribute that I'm looking for there. So if I just run that little piece, it doesn't do squat. Let's see. Oh, dash property.
Oh. In this case, we're getting the domain controller, so the list should not be.
Yeah, it should be there. Anyway, again, this is like weird stuff that only happens when you're doing a demo. Filter star. Let's do that. So there we are. There's our list of DCs. And
is it name or DNS host name?
Host name. Computer objects have DNS host name. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
there
that's
we
what
go.
I was thinking. Yeah, okay, good.
All right, so we'll grab all those into a list then. And now we're going to go for each one of those DCs. We're going to get some stuff. Now, here's a trick. If you want to query event log stuff from a server, there's a firewall rule that blocks that by default.
Really? I didn't realize that.
Yes. So I've got to go and kind of around the back here, invoke a command to open that firewall rule for the event logs. And I say where it's enabled as false, then I pipe it to enable firewall rule. All
and
right.
that would be really important, because I didn't realize that they actually blocked the query for the event log.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yep. So then I'm going to add to my events array get when event for that computer name, filter XML. There's my fancy dandy XML filter right there. It gets everything I need.
Yep.
And then, terribly inefficient, but it works. This is my next little thing here. Let's skip that for now. And then what I do is I come down here, and the XML piece is the real headache. Because what happens in an event log entry, just random event log, this is unscripted, we'll see what it says. So I've got all this other jazz down in here, like account name, stuff that I want to pull out of that. Like right there, I want to see what's this account name and all that. But it's not in the regular event properties.
Right.
Because it's a hard problem to solve, because every event logs a unique type of data, so you need a unique data structure to hold that. So what we do is we have this message body that has XML formatted data in the event that you collect. So we have to go under details then, and we can see under here, in the XML view, all of a sudden, this is getting ugly all the time. Event data is where all that stuff's hiding. So I wrote this really inefficient routine to grab every one of these by name and append them to the object as a member property with the value.
Now, actually, that's kind of an important thing. You're kind of correcting something that probably should have been done for us in the first place. But
it would have been nice.
It would have been nice, but you're taking that data, and if you've made objects in PowerShell before, and you've added your own properties to those objects, that's what Ashley's talking about, is taking that data and adding it as properties in there. So then you can use select object and format table, whatever it is you want to use to start to work with that.
Yep, so then we can grab those events. Now, let's go ahead and flip to the next slide on lockouts, because I'm not going to actually execute this yet. This was just kind of a setup, because now when we want to troubleshoot, knowing who and when and where and all that stuff, we've got to know the event logs. Now, the unfortunate part is that most of us we know that our event logs roll so fast. Especially when you turn on auditing. Your logs are just going to roll really fast. So you should have some type of an enterprise tool that does all that event collection. You can do that out of the box with Windows Server features, or a lot of IT security departments will have their own, third-party super secret event log harvesting thing that just, maps the whole environment, collects all the logs for terabytes and terabytes, right? So that's probably, you might have to go, talk to them, but at least I can say now at this server, in this date, in this log, I know what I'm looking for. So let's flip to the next slide then on lockouts.
Yeah, they brought that up.
Got it, good, okay. So, by the way, notice at the top of all my demo scripts, I have the break command. You know why I do that?
Why do you do that, by the way? I was going to ask you why you put break in there.
Because if I accidentally instead of hitting F8 to run one line in my demo, I hit F5 by mistake.
I get it.
It won't run the whole thing.
Now I'm going to start putting that into mine.
Every demo.
Because every time I'll screw that up. Yeah. I'll hit F5. And just as a note for you guys, when you are grabbing these scripts and you want to play with some of this stuff, he's selecting what he wants and then presses F8, right, in the ISC. If you accidentally hit F5, that could possibly be a bad thing, but that's why he's putting break in there, so it'll just do one thing and then kick out. So that's actually really nice. That's cool.
The safety on the gun.
Safety. I
like
that.
All right. So here, we're going to look at the default domain policy. And now we're going to change topics, forensics towards lockouts. This is the classic thing. How do I find where the account locked out? And in the 2003 resource kit, we had those AL tools that you would go download for account lockout tools. Right. And there was this event log harvesting utility in there. What was that called? I just drew a blank. I've used it for years. And so it would go event comb.
Oh, event comb. That's right.
Event comb, right?
Yep.
And you'd have to go find where the lockouts occurred. And I thought, and I know some other people have probably scripted this before, but I took my own stab at it. And I haven't blogged this one yet. I never got around to it.
Secret.
Yeah, so anyway, you might have to turn on some policies for, in this case, in the default domain policy, I turned on under security settings, advanced audit configuration, and you can run an RSOP here to get the results to see it, or you might use audit poll, either one. But basically, there's some TechNet content and articles you want to read about auditing because it's a little tricky to configure the first time around. So I've got the auditing turned on in my environment, and if I look at the default domain password policy here, you can see this gives me a really quick way to see I've got 180 days for my password resets. That's because this is my lab.
Right.
And I don't want to version my passwords all the time.
I was going to say, I thought you wanted like every 30 days or something, man.
Yeah, I've seen like school systems do 180 days, but not for normals. Now, if I want to find locked out accounts, we got a commandlet for that.
Yay!
Search AD account has tons of really cool switches on it, and one of them is locked out. So I can just run that and say, hey, nobody's locked out right now. Well, what I need to do is I got to make somebody locked
out. Yeah.
Right? So I'm going to cheat and go over here because I can't do that in an RDP session. I'm going to find my VM for Windows 7 machine here. I'm going to connect over to that box. And I'm going to create a lockout for good old ANLAN. I want to pick a user here. ANLAN, blah, blah, blah. Oh, it was incorrect. Incorrect. Blah, blah, blah. Incorrect. Blah, blah, blah. It's Monday morning. I know this was my password Friday when I reset it. Oh, it's thinking. It's thinking. Are you really sure that's your password? Hold on. I'm talking to the PDC. 1 second here. I want to make sure before I give you some bad news.
Yeah, and the bad news.
Right. Here it comes. Here it comes with, this is a demo. It's going to take a while, right?
Yeah, it's spinning.
Right, spin. So he's going to come up now. He's going to tell us that this account has been locked out. He's giving us some, he's really working for us here. Oh, okay. It's locked out and may not be logged into. All right. So let's go back over here now and let's go find search locked out accounts. And sure enough, ANLAN is locked out. Now here, this is really cool because this is a commandlet built in now that'll show me not only just the username, but a lot of other good, juicy identifying properties that I can use to manipulate and search on that account. says locked out parameter, their property is true. So we did lock out the account. Now I want to create a lockout report. Now this is where I did some AD scripting here. I'm going to create an empty report array. We're going to define our user as ANLAN. And now we're going to go grab a list of domain controllers. And now this is interesting. What I did was I recreated the old account lockouts tool in PowerShell.
Oh, nice.
So you get a view of the DCs and where the lockout counts are and all that jazz.
Oh,
okay?
I like that.
So now we've got a list of DCs here. I'm going to run it. And it says, notice I'm using the out grid view with the pass-through.
Right.
So I can pick and I get the OK button. And the title says select the DCs to query. So I'm going to pick all my DCs here. Multi-select, OK. So now I've got my DCs picked. And now I'm going to go look for lockout status on those DCs. So now I'm going out and I'm doing a get AD user against each domain controller because some of these are not replicated attributes on the user, okay? So I run that, and now I'm going to dump that out into a report here that I can then, I'm doing some manipulation on the date timestamp values, which we will cover in the bonus content later.
Ooh, the bonus
how to
content
do the
later.
date fields, all right? And now I pull this up and I see, look at this. It's like the old account lockout tool, right? I've got, here's my user, here's the DC.
Right.
Look, there's my bad password
There's
count.
the bad password
all right?
count. Yeah, yeah.
And so now if I scroll across, I've got, let's see, last log on timestamp here. See, he's never logged on to that box because I got a 1600 date. Last log off, the converted basically says, take this long ugly number and make it a real date stamp for me. When created, when changed, all that stuff. So that gives me a list then of the DCs, and I can see where the lockout counts are. So I want to click all those DCs. Actually, let's just do the two. And I'm going to go query the event logs now for those DCs. Now, this would be really cool if we added some workflow parallel stuff. I haven't got that far with it, but what I'm going to do now, here's why I showed you the XML filter, right? I'm going to go query for all the lockout event IDs. Your eyes are wide open.
I know, because I'm dying to see this. This is like really cool stuff. Yeah. So, I'm watching it just like you guys are.
Yep. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and do what we just looked at with the event log query. And I'm going to run this event log query. And so that's going to go out for across all the DCs that I picked in that combo box there, in that out grid view. And so then I'm going to come down. I've got all my data is collecting now from the second DC. It's scanning the event logs, looking for all those lockout events. Then I'm going to go through and do my little magic routine here to take the XML data and split out those detailed fields, those properties that I want out of the events. And then I'm going to run that little bit. And so that manipulates the results that came back. Now I'm going to view those events here to see what I've got. And I see that ANLAN from this IP hit this this DC at this time. Okay, so that's where it shows the lockouts. Now, there's always two typically for this reason. This is the IP address where the lockout originated. And notice, now this is starting to look a little weird. The 7 box, this is the Win7 box. But the 1.1, that's because what happens before it locks out an account, the way AD works on the back end, I type my password wrong. It goes to my DC that I logged into, that I'm talking to right now, and says, hey, is this my password? And he says, doesn't match what I've got, but before I can deny you access, I've got to go check with the PDC first, because you may have changed it, and PDC always has the most recent one.
That's right. PDC is always the one that gets
so the
most
PDC
recent.
always has the highest lockout count. So you might see two events here where the original client machine and then the DC where it was targeting.
Oh, okay, cool.
So now we can take that and pipe it out to a CSV.
Now you can report on it any way that you want, right? So
yeah, so we can then take a look at this. And now we can see, ooh, look, here's Coho Vineyard. Here's the IP address of the offending machine. And lots of other details I really don't need right now. But other good stuff that's all been wrapped up from that. Here's the event. 4771 is the bad password attempt, and the 4740 is the actual lockout.
Is the lockout
event.
one, okay.
Yeah, so that's how I can find that kind of data then in the event logs for lockouts.
Well, you know, this isn't necessarily the easiest thing in the world, but you know that we didn't get into IT because it was easy.
Right.
But with PowerShell, at least now it's possible. Once I have, or I've taken the wonderful scripts that you've done, and I play with this. I've now got a tool that will help me start to investigate and grab some of this data.
Right.
And in this case, you know, like you had shown us, you know, the complexity of the XML, I can go to the event log and I can pull that out. I like that a lot. I like that a lot, and about tracking the lockouts. Do you have anything else on lockouts? Because I know we got to talk a little bit about permissions before we...
Well, let's flip over to the next segment then. On
Okay,
permissions. I think we've got
the slide
title
for
slide for
permissions.
permissions, yeah. So, and again, that whole lockout thing was scripted.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to show is, okay, sometimes you don't have a commandlet to do exactly what you need. You got to write some script, and that's what this is about. So
yeah, and once
got
you've
some
written the
practical
script,
examples.
yeah, once you've written the script, you're done now. You've got it,
Right.
and you can just execute it, and off you go.
So now let's move on to permissions. And this isn't so much of the forensics necessarily, but it could be, because what if there's an attacker inside your network and they've granted themselves extra permissions somewhere, and you want to be able to find that? So here, what I've got a really popular script out on my blog that's an OU permissions report. Essentially dumps out all the delegated permissions across all your OUs.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
So the way we used to have to do that here at the demo screen is we got DS ACLs.
Yeah.
And that's cool. It still works, but you got the get ACL that you can use for file system. It also works for Active Directory.
You know what? I didn't realize that, and now that I'm looking at it, it makes perfectly good sense. Why? Because it's using the provider.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's cool,
Yeah.
but I don't like it. ACL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the other way you can do it is looking at the NT security descriptor attribute on the Active Directory object. Has all those permissions bound up inside there.
Oh, really? Okay, I like that.
That's where the binary blob of all the permissions are stored on every object in AD. So what I can do is I can say, this is from Wingtip Toys. Let's change this real quick, and let's say new users. I know that's an OU that I've got here in cohovineyard.com, editing my distinguished name path. And so now I'm going to look at the access on there. And here's the ugly part. I was sitting in England one day on a trip, and I was writing this blog post on how to find this permission stuff. And I stayed up really late pouring through. Here's a pro tip for you. All right. There are some times when you're working in Active Directory where you've got to find some kind of protocol documentation to get to the nitty-gritty of it. So if you need to do that, there's something called the Microsoft Protocol Documentation Library. You can download it in PDF, or it's available on the web. And it's basically documentation for everything we've got. And it's down to the attribute level specs on everything we do, including Active Directory. So there's an MSADTS, AD technical specifications, and that's where I had to find this stuff. It's really deep in the documentation. So what happens is, in a typical permission for a file system, you got read, write, full control.
Right.
But in AD, have you ever looked at the permissions?
Yeah.
You've got all those child objects, child object
Absolutely.
types, the different types of permissions. It's mind-boggling. Well, those are all on this object type and inherited object type, and that's where the permissions are defined. And there's no pretty way to get to that. So what I had to do was I had to go in and, let me see, scroll down through my demo here. Let's see, that's looking at setting permissions. Let me get on down the list here. I've got lots of blog links in there to help you. Here we go. So I'm going to create a report array here, an empty array. Here are the documentation references where you can go find these. These are essentially GUIDs that correspond to the permission types. And like I said, it's ugly. I've done all the work for you. So what I do is I create a hash table and I go read in all of these different GUIDs out of the schema. That's where they're stored. And then I go find all the permissions. I get a list of all the, like the domain root, all the organizational units, all that stuff. And then for every one of those OUs, I go do a get ACL, and I expand the access property here.
Now it's going to start to make more sense.
Yeah, so now
get ACL is actually, okay.
Now I'm translating that object type, an inherited object type, which stores the permissions. I grab that and pull it out of that hash table that I just read as a reference table in the schema. And that goes through and creates meaningful data in the report now. So now when I look at my report, we can dump this out here. I've got a report, a hash table, but or a CSV. Let's take a look at different ways to look at this report now. So let's say where is not inherited, right? Explicitly granted permissions. So here they are on all these different OUs. Here are the accounts. Now, this doesn't do a whole lot for you until you put it in out grid view, where I can actually view it a little better. And now I see the identity reference and the OU. So now I can start doing reports like, show me everywhere this account has been, or this group has been delegated permissions and OUs, right? And you can dump this all out to a spreadsheet where it makes it easy to manipulate. So here I say prompt for a user or group name, and let's just go filter for that. But let's take the report and pipe it to out grid view so we can see the data itself here. So here we can see all permissions, read-only, DS replication permissions, extended rights, all that jazz. And we can then go over to see who has that right, is it inherited or not, and that's with permissions. And I know we went through that really fast, and there's a lot of custom code.
Right.
But that's all blogged out at GoTPFE. So.
Well, you know, the GoTPFE.
So that's it for the demos in this section.
But the fascinating thing about this is some of the interesting points about the forensics is this. You're going to have to dive a little bit deeper into understanding the attributes of Active Directory, and you showed us how to do that. I mean, that's kind of critical to this. Anybody that works in forensics knows that you really have to start to understand what's going on underneath. And I appreciate you taking us through all of the steps. What I really appreciate is he's sharing his code. That's what I really. As a matter of fact, you know, I've got this screen up as a reminder to people for some of the links where they can find some of this. Do you want to kind of remind us about what the links are?
Sure. So the first one is the MVA PowerShell AD, so MVA PSAD. That short link will take you to my blog where I've posted all the scripts that we've featured today, and some extra links and tips for you there to some of my other blog posts that are related. The MVA Premier link will take you to a page where you can find out more information about Premier services. So I'm a Premier field engineer for Microsoft. If you would like to have me or somebody like me come to your company and help you, you can hit that link. If you're already a Premier customer, just talk to your TAM, and we can come out to help you. And then we've got these books by some of our esteemed peers, colleagues.
Some of our esteemed peers. I just want to point out, if you're kind of still getting into Active Directory and you need to get in deeper and you want a little bit more of the general PowerShell stuff with Active Directory and knowledge of Active Directory, these books on this list can be very helpful to you. And these are many of our friends and esteemed peers that are experts at this. Just like having a PFE kind of in a book form. One of them I do want to point out, a dear friend of mine, love you, Richard. Richard Sidaway's down there is a great book if you're just getting started, especially with Active Directory. Gets a lot of the concepts in for you. But when you pick it up, be kind of careful. He lives in England, so it's not really written in English. You'll have to translate it yourself. But other than that, yeah, I love you, Richard. So some interesting, helpful, and useful books. Now, folks, first of all, make sure that you fill out the poll, and you go down, you get these links, and you get the information that Ashley's given to you, and take a look at it. You might even try going through these scripts in your own test environment and looking at this Jumpstart again, because it will be recorded and you can watch it over and over and over again. You know, I do want to say something. We're not done. We're not done.
What?
I know this live Jumpstart is about to end, but Ashley and I are going to stay here we've got 4 more modules of some things you're never going to see anywhere else to go further into working with Active Directory that's going to be available to you as soon as you're done looking at this one. So
let's tell them about what they're going to
go ahead.
miss. If you don't watch these, you're going to miss some important things.
What are they going to miss? What are they going to miss?
Stale object cleanup.
Stale object cleanup.
Stale users, computers, and groups, right? People are always fussing with how to clean these things up. We're going to give you the tools on how to do that. We're also going to talk about replication. How do I work with sites and subnets?
Troubleshooting replication. Oh, yeah.
Fismos, things like that.
Fismo.
We're going to talk about recovery.
Recovering.
How do I work with the recycle bin? Even attribute level recovery options. Really cool stuff for free out of the box.
For free out of the box. But
right.
the recycle bin, the attribute, bringing stuff back is very important because it's somewhere somebody's going to go, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Really? You just took out the entire sales department.
And then the icing on the cake is going to be deployment.
Yeah, the whole deployment. We're going to do deployment. DC Promo's gone.
Yeah.
And you're going to be really happy to see what it's replaced with. So,
yes.
First of all, thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
It's been great having you.
That's been fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun for the live jumpstart. Hope you all have enjoyed this. Make sure to take the quick poll, and Ashley and I both, along with everybody else here at Microsoft, would like to thank you very much for viewing our Using PowerShell for Active Directory. But don't go away because you're going to want to watch the other videos too. So we'll see you as we go back to those videos when this one's all done. So have a great day and cheers.